in one of the papers or magazines around locally. And I looked her up online and sent her an email, and I said, hey, let's have coffee Thursday at Starbucks down the street, because she lives so close to me. And she wrote me back, she said, what time? And I said, 10 o'clock. And so that's how I met Jennifer. And it's been a wonderful treat to have her in my life. She's added so much to my life, as well as the board, the Chicago Ions board, all went to see her one-woman play. And I know all of you have gotten the information that has all the details, but she's going to tell you all about contacting your dad and on the other side. So please give a warm welcome to Jennifer Weigel.
Can you hear me okay? Well, I don't know if I'll lean in. I think I'll go like this. Is that okay? Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I spent a lot of time in this hospital when my dad was diagnosed with his brain tumor, so I was here for much different reasons. I like this way a lot better. But for those who don't know, my father, Tim Weigel, at the age of 55, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He was in the best shape of his life. So I thought. And almost a year later to the diagnosis, he ended up dying from the brain tumor on Father's Day. And he was 56, and for all you hospice care professionals here, I give you so much kudos, because the woman we had that helped him when he transitioned, she knew by the breathing that it was coming. About 2 minutes before he passed, she came. And I was sleeping on a fold-out couch outside of my dad's bedroom. And we were kind of camped out last couple of weeks, as many of you know who suffer a loss with somebody with hospice. You're just kind of waiting. And she came in. Well, what happened was I woke up to a tickling on my leg. And I pulled back the covers, and there was a bright butterfly in the bed. Interesting. It was orange and blue, vibrant colors, and I scooped it up in my hand and I stared at it, and then it expanded its wings and contracted and then flew away and disappeared into thin air. It wasn't there, it was in my mind, but it was so clear. So at that moment when the butterfly flew away, the hospice nurse was standing in the doorway and said, it's time. And so we walked into the room, took a few breaths, and took his final breath. Now, as many of you know, when you watch someone take their last breath on this earth, you are forever changed. And at first I was so sad, and as you go through all the stages of grief of being sad and mad, then comes glad, believe it or not. I did get to glad. It took me a long time. But these interviews that I had done back when I was a reporter, just to give you a little history about my journey, I was a reporter with WGN and CBS here in Chicago, and really important stuff like the new Bruce Willis movie, or where do you get your Thanksgiving turkey? Groundbreaking journalism. But I would try to report on the stories that I felt were important. I would always pitch the stories I wanted to do. Sometimes a boss would let me, sometimes they would not, but it was this constant struggle. And so whenever somebody interesting came through town, I would make it a point to pitch my boss. And I would always go for the producer that I thought was a little bit more woo-woo than the others, you know. And so James Van Praagh, who many know, Talking to Heaven, Heaven and Earth, Reaching Heaven, all about heaven. I see dead people since I was 8, he's that guy. He was coming through Chicago, so I made a point to get an interview with him. And it was a life-changing experience. This is before my dad was sick or anything, but I was always sort of fascinated by people who claim they can talk to dead people. But you can't really be a reporter and let it be known you think there might be something to this, because that might cause people to run screaming from the room. So I kind of had to keep it incognito. And James Van Praagh, a lot of people are probably familiar with his teachings, But one thing that he told me that was so interesting, that really stuck, was that once you get to the other side, first of all, when the spirit leaves the physical body, you're immediately out of pain. You float above your body sometimes, looking down at all those surrounding you. And you go back to the prime of your life, whatever that might be. You know, if your favorite era was in your 20s, you go there. If you had a really great 45 year, you go back there. Physically, however you felt your best is what you do when you get to the other side, supposedly. And you're embraced by the light, and it's an overwhelming feeling of just pure and total love. And there is no judgment on the other side. No judgment. And one of the things I say in my one-woman show is if this gets out, the Catholics and the Jews are totally out of business. But no judgment. To wrap your head around that. And here we are in judgment most days, every day. Even when we claim we're spiritual beings. You know, I say to people, when you get in this space of, you know, you really need to read this book, instead of going to that judgment place, because what you're really saying is, you need to read this book because you're totally screwed up, and I'm so much smarter than you are, and if you just read this book and got with it already, you'd make so much more progress, so quit your bitching and read this book. A little bit of judgment there, just a smidge. If you can come from a place of compassion, that they're just not there yet. And if you could think that maybe you were there too, because I know 7, 8 years ago, I was in a totally different space than I am today. And I look back at that girl, and I get mad sometimes, because I was so worried about work, and I would do anything my bosses asked, and I would just jump through hoops, and, you know, exhaustion galore. My husband's here, he's going, and what has changed? You gotta admit something's changed. A little? Okay, he's going, yeah. But I do look at that girl and I go, gosh, that poor girl. But that's judging it. Because no, wait a minute, that great girl, you had to get there to get here. You had to be an A to get to B, C, D, and E. It's just part of the journey. So I have this relative who was telling other people in my family not to read my book, Stay Tuned, which is this book that I wrote after my dad passed away. I went out on this quest to interview all these different mediums and psychics in hopes of talking to my dead dad, which I will get to parts of that journey as well, which is what the one-woman show is, which is called I'm Spiritual, Damn It. Which I really wanted to name the book, I'm Spiritual, Damn It, but my book agent told me I wouldn't sell any books in Arkansas if I did that. Because I'm huge in Arkansas. But, so we named it Stay Tuned, which I really like that title because of the double entendre. For those who do read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's about being tuned in. And we all need to tune in. But this relative of mine, telling other family members not to read my book because I talk about talking to dead people, and she is very Christian, born-again Christian, which is the worst kind. I mean that lovingly. And without judgment and full of compassion. But she's telling people not to read my book because it goes against the good book. And I don't know, but if you ask me, the Bible is full of talking to dead people. They're the only ones who could do it? Apparently. A lot of die-hard Christians do not believe in contacting. They think it's the devil and a lot of things, and she's in one of those camps. It's the devil. So apparently I'm doing the devil's work in her mind, and she tells people that. Now I get caught up in thinking about that, and then I get angry. And I was walking the other day, and I got really angry thinking about her telling people not to support me, because it's like, you know, when your family, the good, the bad, the indifferent, can't you be supportive sometimes? You think, you know, it's like if you have a child that's in a rock band and you don't like their songs, but you go anyway and you stand there with earplugs because you want to be supportive, but you don't have to listen to every song and like it. But then as I was walking, I thought, okay, now here I am judging her just the way she's judging me. I'm giving it right back. Energetically speaking, I was giving it right back. And when I realized that, I was like, wow, 2 wrongs don't make a right here. I'm just going to sit back and say that's where she is. And honor, that's where she is. And we all have people in our family that we can think of right now that we're thinking, golly. You know, a friend of mine said, you know, before I go to bed, I try to bless every person in my family, and there's just a couple of people I can't get there yet. I say it, but I so don't mean it. I say the words, but energetically, there's no match. And so when you get to that point, I just tell people, you know, just bless it and say, eventually I'll get there, and hopefully they will too. You know, have compassion for yourselves and for them, because we're all getting there differently. So back to my getting there. After my dad passes away, I'm determined to get a hold of James Van Praagh again, because from when I interviewed him before my dad was sick, I was very impressed with how he brought through my grandmother, Virginia. I called her Ginny, the whole family called her Ginny. And he's sitting there across from me and he says, okay, I've got a woman here. And he looks up, you know, he's like, thank you. Yes, thank you. Jimmy? Jimmy? Jenny? Oh, Ginny, with a G, thank you. I have Ginny here. And Ginny is my grandmother, and I'm like, whoa, that was pretty interesting. Now, sidebar, I had put on my grandmother's rings that morning. I'd lost them and recently relocated them, and I put them on just to see if it would help bring her vibration, or I don't know what. I was open to whatever. And he says, oh, she's so glad you found the rings. Oh, yeah? And then again, you know, skeptical journalist, everybody's got a dead grandma. Everybody's got a dead grandma with rings. Probably give you jewelry. You know, that's where I go. I gotta make sense of it. But then she starts talking about, at this moment, my husband comes home from work and he's skimming. The door was back here. James is sitting. So if Clay, my husband, had walked, he would have gotten into the line of the camera. The cameraman, we were doing this interview. So Clay had to crawl on the floor. So I'm interviewing James Van Praagh, and I see my husband crawling on the floor. I'm trying not to laugh, you know, his butt's like skimming along. And he gets into a safe spot out of line of the camera, and as he comes in, his father had passed away 2 years before. His father's name is Richard. So in walks Clay, skimming. James doesn't even turn around for the noises he hears behind him. And then he says, I have a Richard here. Really? Okay, now I'm like, wait a minute. Because at this time, this was 1997, Google wasn't even around. Not a lot of people had anything but dial-up internet. If he had done research on me, he might have been able to find out I had a grandmother named Virginia, but he would not have been able to find out I had a father-in-law named Richard. And then he continued to describe Richard down to his taste in clothes and restaurants and his business and all these things. And then he changed some insurance at the last minute, which I had no idea. Apparently he had. So after the James Van Praagh thing, I called up my mother-in-law, who was really cynical Catholic, raised Catholic, spent her whole life going to Catholic school, forced her kids to go to Catholic school until they were old enough to protest when they got out. No more church, Mom, I'm 17. But she, I gave her a tape of the interview with James Van Praagh where her dead husband supposedly came through. Another thing James said was that once you die and go to the light, you have to learn. It's all about learning. This is our schoolroom. And that there's no hell, technically. Hell is here on earth, depending on how we make it. Only love matters on the other side. There's no fear, no judgment, just love. So I asked my mother-in-law what she thinks of James Van Praagh, and she said, kind of a pisser that when you gotta die, you gotta go learn stuff. I just want my cocktails and my cigarettes. Is that so wrong? Yeah, not so wrong. But she did confirm that her husband had changed the insurance at the last minute, and that blew her away. Not enough to make her believe in mediums, however. But the next time I went to visit her in Indiana, she had 3 copies of James Van Praagh books on her nightstand. So another interview I did, I kind of went on this quest. I was looking for James Van Praagh. I quit my job in broadcasting, which everybody said was crazy, but I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy it leads, news, and all of the grief that went along with telling terrible stories and not being able to tell the stories I wanted to tell. So I decided to read as many books as I could on near-death and how I came back to life and how I was abducted by aliens, you name it, I did it. And I would walk into the bookstore, I don't know if any of you guys do this, and you just kind of go where you live, you put your arm out and see what hits, and then you stop and you go, that one. And you take it home. Sometimes only a page of that book is what you need, sometimes the whole darn thing, it's always different. But one of the books I picked up in that state was a book called Lilydale, the true tale of the town that talks to the dead or something. This sounds cool. So I did some research on Lilydale and found out that this is a place in upstate New York that has been around since the 1870s. The only people who live there are mediums, psychics, and healers. And spiritualists believe that the spirit never dies, and you can just go there whenever and talk to your dead loved ones all the time, because they're always with us. And it was kind of a movement when women weren't allowed to practice any sort of religion, so they would flock to this little town in Lilydale and sit among the trees and talk about spirit and God and what you could find. And it sort of became this sort of location for cool women in the late 1800s. And Susan B. Anthony and all sorts of pilgrimages were taking place in Lilydale. So historically speaking, it's an interesting spot. I had to go to Lilydale, but I went online and found that James Van Praagh was coming to Lilydale. Sweet. So I actually called his publicist and said, hey, I interviewed James back in '97. I would like to do another interview with him again. And to my shock, she said, sure. And so I got a cameraman, came with me, who went to Lilydale and made the trek. Just so you know, it's a long-ass drive. It's like 16 hours or something. Fly, if you're gonna go. But the thing about Lilydale is it's this gated community, and there's about 300 medium psychics healers. You literally drive through the gates, and you can park in this one area, and then you have to walk up and down these cobblestone streets. And you sign up with the different mediums and psychics. So I signed up for as many as I could. I was on this quest. I must talk to my dead dad. And some of them were extremely disappointing. You know, I just felt like, she's tired. I know she's tired. She doesn't want to be here. She doesn't know a darn thing about me. She's fishing. You know, get some people in that state. And then I'm going, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And then there were a couple of morsels where they would tell you something that's so far out there. How could anyone know this? One woman named Marty Hughes, she's mentioned in my book, she told me right off the bat she had my mother-in-law. Now my mother-in-law, the one, the cynical Catholic that was pissed she had to learn stuff when she died, she said right before she passed away, unfortunately she died about a year after my father passed away. And before she died, we were sitting in her bed, and I heard a cardinal outside, and that's my signal from my dad. To me, I feel like when I hear a cardinal, that's my little dad whispering to me, because he loved cardinals. He was really pissed when the Arizona Cardinals left Chicago in '68. He was just a big Cardinal fan. So that's my signal, and I said, you know, Kathy, I think that cardinal is my dad. And she said, when I come back, I am not going to be the cardinal. I said, really, Kathy, what are you going to be? And she sat up in bed, and she stretched her arms out like this, and she goes, I'm going to be a swan. And I said, why a swan? And she said, because they're so graceful, and they don't have to put their butts all the way in the water. That's important. So as I'm sitting with this woman, Marty Hughes in Lilydale, trying to talk to my dead dad, Marty says, I got a woman here, she's putting her arms up like this, like she's making fun of Swan Lake or something? What is this? Do you know what is this? She's got a great sense of humor. I'm like, I think it might be my mother-in-law. And she said, well, she says the food is lousy and she wants a cocktail. That would be Kathy. You know, I said, okay, I've come all this way. I know her daughter and her son would love some sort of communication. Can you give me any morsel, any aha? You know, everybody wants to know where the gold is buried or what the lottery numbers are. Just give me something. I can take it back to Chicago and give you something. And she says, And Marty, I'll never forget the look on her face, was like, ooh, this, you're not gonna like this. I'm like, oh, bring it. She says, brush your teeth before you go to bed. Smart ass. Just that was her personality. It's like, you want to know where the gold is buried? Brush your teeth before you go to bed. And James Van Praagh said this too. You know, people want to know why they don't get these really important, and sometimes the messages are very clear and very important, and please do this. But the point is, they are in the other room. They are that close. They are so close, we could reach out and touch them practically. So to think that they're in this totally different spot, that they're unreachable, unattainable, places you can't communicate, you can. You need to talk to them every day like they are standing next to you. They can hear you. And if you have requests, keep making them on a daily basis, and somehow, some way, they will get through to you. You talked about 9 months later after you lost your sister. You got the message. Time and space is irrelevant. There is no time or space on the other side. There's, you know, it's all happening right now. So if something doesn't come for 9 months, you might be thinking on that 8th month, there's nothing. It doesn't exist for me. Oh, Dad, where the heck are you? And after all of this trekking and questing, I now know, I believe, I feel. I interviewed so many mediums and psychics, and so many people with gifts and different gifts. It's not the same for every person. Everyone's got a different modality that works better for them. Some like to touch you with their hands. Some hear things audio. Some hear songs. Some hear, I mean, it's so varied and different. It's like a diet. Nobody's diet works for everybody else. Some people love carbs and some people love chocolate. Everybody is wired differently. So to judge someone for their path being different, or to say, oh gosh, that's not going to work for me, but I'm glad it works for you. It doesn't work for me as well, but I'm glad it works for you. And I've met so many people with these different modalities. And this one woman was right here in Chicago. She spoke here. I don't know if anybody saw Therese Rowley, but I was getting my massage. I was getting a massage after my dad passed away, dealing with the grief. For me, a massage does more healing than you know, a retreat with my girlfriend for the weekend. I mean, it's just like 1 good hour of a nice massage. And she says to me, the massage therapist, I don't know why, but you're supposed to meet my friend, Therese Rowley. And I said, well, what did she do? Is she a therapist? No. She sees energy and tells you about your past lives, and she's been able to see dead people since she was 6. And, oh, by the way, she's a big CEO consultant for big companies. Okay, that's quite a combo. So I decided I had to check it out, but I didn't give my last name. I just gave my first name so she couldn't Google me and do any information. And I went in there, and this woman looked like she could have been a coworker of mine. I don't know why I was thinking she would have like a crystal ball and patchouli burning and weird music and dead chickens, but no, it was just a nice lady in a suit. And she starts telling me an exact conversation that I had with my father. Down to the inflections, she physically started to talk like him. And it was overwhelming, but I thought, okay, how am I going to make sense of this? She's telling me something, and the only people that were there were myself, my dead dad, and God, and apparently Therese Rowley. So once I kind of got over that, and then she started to tell me, he's saying it's okay to leave the job, because I was debating leaving my job, and I didn't want to disappoint my dead dad. We don't want to disappoint our parents, even if they're dead. And he was saying he sees now there, you have to do what you want to do, follow your heart. You're staying in the job because that's what you think he wants you to do. He wants you to do what you want to do. It's okay. I'm going, how can this be happening? This is crazy. Why is this woman telling me what my... And then she says, you know, just jump and the net will follow, because all that matters over here is love. It's just love. We're all drops in the same big ocean. And whether you touch one person or 1,000,000 people, the gardener is just as important as Oprah or Angelina Jolie or any of these other people. It doesn't matter. Only the human ego thinks that one is more important than the other. And shedding that ego to think that you're more important than the homeless guy outside is the first step to getting where you need to go and realizing we're all connected. We're all connected. So it was a groundbreaking experience for me. And then I went into work, and I took James Van Prague's advice of talking to my dead loved ones like they're in the next room. So I'm sitting in bed and I said, okay, Dad, how you doing? I think I'm gonna quit my job, but I need to know if that's an okay thing to do. It feels like the right thing to do, but I'm not quite so sure. So any little wink would be really great. So I went into work the next morning, and the security guard looked up at me, and it's 3:33 in the morning, which is a very spiritual number for anybody into numerology, but god awful early for the rest of us who don't care about numerology. That's when I had to be at work every morning. And the security guard said, hey Jen, are we gonna read in the paper that you're quitting today? Excuse me? He said, your picture is missing from the wall. We have this wall of fame sort of thing with all the reporters, and a huge hole where the picture of Jennifer Weigel once stood. I'm like, do you know something I don't? You start to get all paranoid, like, what are they going to tell me? Like, am I going to walk in and they're going to say you're fired? But no, they had no idea what happened to the picture. No idea. Just gone. Apparently they took it down for cleaning or something. And so that was a big sign. I ask for signs all the time, and sometimes they come like an anvil over the head, and sometimes they're more subtle. More subtle being like somebody calling you out of nowhere and just saying, have you ever thought about going to Sedona, Arizona? Or something that comes up in conversation. And for me, I always feel like if I hear something 3 times, that's like the magic number. Some people get it in one. I have a friend who says intuition whispers just once. I'm like, well, good for you, buddy, because it takes a little longer for me to get it. 3 times is when I know it's something that's supposed to happen. And so now, today, I listen for those whispers. I believe our dead loved ones are that close that we can touch them. It's like a radio station. When you tune in, sometimes it's fuzzy, sometimes it's clear. But either way, it's just a different frequency. I love the thought that there's nothing but love on the other side. I had a very vivid dream, talk about his dreams, when my dad visited me, and it was years after he'd passed. And it was so clear. He and his best friend were puffing on cigars, just hanging out by the pool. And my dad looked at his best friend and he said, where I am now, none of this stuff matters. And he pointed to his Jaguar in the driveway, and he pointed to his big house by the lake, and he pointed to his swimming pool. It's just stuff. You can't take any of this stuff with you where I am. And he pointed to his heart, and he said, this is what matters, my friend. And he pointed to the kids playing the pool. He said, they are what matters. Loving is all you can take with you. It was a very, very powerful moment, because I felt like he was talking directly to me. Because at the time, there was haggling going on about his stuff. He had died. We were fighting over his stuff, furniture and books and like silly stuff, but sentimental stuff. So Marty Hughes, the medium in Lilydale, she said to me, your dad's heart is in your heart. It's not in a chair or in an armoire. It's in your heart. And I think we all could remember that every once in a while. Like if we could just have that rainbow feel a little bit closer to our dead loved ones. It's really just stuff. They're with you all the time. Breathe them into your heart. That's where you'll find them. But the other huge, huge thing that I have learned, my lesson seems to be about this, whether you touch 1 or a million piece. Because when your ego gets in the way, you start to think, I did this book signing when the book had come out, and I was on Thursday night. And I had already kind of told every relative and friend about the other 6 book signings beforehand. So this was the Thursday night in December, and it was snowing, and I just didn't want to bug anybody. But as I was driving to this bookstore at Park Ridge, I started to panic that nobody was going to be there. I was like, oh my God, nobody's going to be there. Okay, well, it is what it is. And so I'm trying to find the store. Has anyone ever been to Park Ridge? It's like DC. Every street just circles and nothing connects, and I'm just driving in circles, and I've got the map quest, and I'm going, where the hell am I? And the snow's coming down, and I'm freaking out. Now, my brother is just a year older than myself. He had just gotten hired by CNN Headline News as a sportscaster in the mornings with Robin Meade, and got a big contract and was all excited, a 3-year deal. And he calls me as I'm struggling to find Burke's Books in Park Ridge. Jen, I just signed the contract, everything's great, oh my God, I'm so excited, I'm so happy. How are you? I'm like, great, I'm really great. Driving to a book signing, nobody's gonna be there, it's snowing, I'm lost. You know, everything couldn't be worse in my mind. And here he is, popping champagne, whee! So I hang up the phone, and I'm like, why did I quit my job? Why would I quit my job? I would be at CNN right now if I didn't quit my damn job. You know, I'm screaming at myself in the car, having a great spiritual moment. And then the phone rings, and it's Therese Rowley, medium from my book, who's now become a friend. And she says, why am I calling you right now? I said, you're the medium psychic lady, you tell me. Why are you calling me right now? She said, I felt I need to call you. Are you okay? Not really. Where are you? I said, well, I'm driving to this book signing. I don't know where the hell I'm going. Why did I quit my job? Tell me I did the right thing. I'm screaming, tell me I did the right thing. She goes, okay, first of all, pull over right now. You should not be driving like this. So I pull over. She goes, okay, take a deep breath. Your journey is not your brother's journey. He's going to reach people in a very different way. You are going to reach people in a very different way. You can't compare the two. He's where he is now, you are where you are now, and that's everywhere you're supposed to be. She goes, remember this. You are where you're supposed to be in every moment. Even if it seems like a mess or chaos or the worst possible place, you are where you're supposed to be in every moment. She said, you might just be meant to meet the bookstore owner. Or one person wanders in there, and that's the one person you're supposed to touch. You don't know, and you have to go in with the open mind and the open heart that you're going to find them, and it's going to be perfect the way it is. So she said, say it. Say it. You are where you're supposed to be in every moment. Great. I hang up the phone, and I look up, and I am in a legal parking space in front of Burke's Books. Wow, she is so good. You are where you're supposed to be in every moment. I found it. So I get out of the car, and I'm like, okay, I'm feeling perky. And I open the door, and I walk in, and there's like 35 chairs set up, and a table with a poster of me and books, and nobody. It's 7:01, it's supposed to start at 7. Donut hole, 0, nada. I was like feeling really good for 30 seconds, and then it all went right back down when I walked in there. And I was like, so I pick up the phone and I call my husband, and I was like, honey, I'm such a loser. I was literally against the bookshelf with my jacket, like, there's nobody here, I'm such a loser. Can you please come out here? And a 2-year-old, I'm like, can you wake up Brent and just bring him out here and sleep in the bed? No. So then I call every friend in my address book within a 20-mile radius. Can you come to Park Ridge? No. So I go and I introduce myself to the owner. Maybe that's who I'm supposed to meet. Maybe that's the one person I'm supposed to meet. And she says, oh, Jennifer, we're so glad you're here. Are you bringing people? Yeah, they're in the way. Traffic, snow, crap. So I go and I sit down and I was like, okay, God, Dad, angels, whatever, whoever's supposed to be here, just let them show up, and I am here. I'm present for whatever happens. I'm open to whatever's supposed to happen. Another thing Therese says, open, allow, receive. Open, allow, receive. Okay, so I'm doing that thing, I'm sitting there, and 2 people come in, then 3 people come in, then a cluster of 5. All of them strangers, none of them relatives or friends. Shocking. About 19, 20, 21. So we had a nice group. They were late because of the snow, they were late because of traffic, but they were there. So I'm talking, and I start telling some stories in the book and Lily Dale and other things. My eye is drawn to this girl in the back, and she's just got the weight of the world on her shoulders, kind of sunken in and sad, but beautiful face, young in her 20s. And after the talk, she's a little lighter, she's smiling a little bit. So I'm signing books for people, and she walks up and she says, thank you so much for making me laugh. I'm really glad I came. I said, yeah, I'm so glad you came too. And for some reason I heard, give her your email address. And her name was Katie. I said, Katie, I'm going to give you my email address because I want to know what you think of this book. For some reason I know I'm supposed to keep in touch with you. And she said, really? I said, yes, please. I love to hear emails from people all the time. So I gave her my email, and that was the end of that. The owner came up to me and she said, I can't believe Katie was smiling. And I said, what's wrong with Katie? And she said, her father was gunned down in the driveway one morning after having breakfast with the family. It was a mob hit gone wrong. They got the wrong guy. The guy they were gunning for was across the street. So whoever they got to do the job had the wrong address. This wonderful father, coach, incredible dad, guy, everybody in the community loved him, was going out to his car at 6:30 in the morning and got killed. So obviously they were having a severe loss. So a couple months later, I think, Christmas time, I get an email from Katie, and she's telling me that she read the book and that it changed her life, and she can't thank me enough because she feels hopeful that her dad, don't know if you know this, but, and then she tells me her story about her dad. And she said her dad used to call her my little Kate, was his nickname for her. And she says, I'm on a vacation in Arizona, and I have to tell you what happened. We went on this hike, and the tour guide looked at me and he said, what is your name? And I said, my name is Katie. And he said, can I call you my little Kate? And she said, I just knew that was my dad talking to me through this guide, and I wouldn't have thought that if it weren't for your book, so thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. So then I'm thinking, as I'm reading this woman needs to meet Therese Rowley, CEO consultant who talks to dead people. So I forward the email to Therese, and I said, I don't know why, but you need to talk to this girl. And she's a teacher, here's the deal. And I don't think she can pay for a session, but, you know, Therese says, I will meet with her. Anybody that's in grief, I want to help somehow. We can work out something. So they meet. Katie goes to see Therese. Therese sees this girl's father right away. He says that he is helping so much more now where he is. That from where he is, he can do so much more for her than if he were having breakfast with her every single morning. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to grasp, but there is so much power that can go on from the other side, he says, where he is now. And then he said, you know, just sit on the couch and put the Afghan over your shoulders, which I guess they have this couch, and there's the knit Afghan and that the grandma knit. So you put the Afghan on your shoulders, and that's me hugging you. That's me holding you. I'm always there. I'm always with you. Talk to me. But he said, where I am now, it's like you're on the elliptical. I guess, Katie, they have an elliptical machine right in front of their TV. It's like you're on the elliptical, and then you just step off. So that's where I am right now. You're just here, and then you're there. Just step right off. That's how different it is to him in his mind, where he is. And then this was the most shocking thing. He's working with the young man that killed him. The young man that killed him is still here and has never been caught. From the other side, this man is helping him heal and try to get him on a good path. Something karmic that they're working out. But whatever it is, he's taking this kid under his wing and to try to help him see a different way of being. And Katie said to me, that's so powerful because that's what my dad would have done. He was the coach. He was, the coach of everything. He always wanted to help young kids find the right path. So that was a very powerful story for me to hear that. And a validation again that there's so much more going on than we could ever imagine. And for any of you guys who have read Dr. Brian Weiss, The Many Lives, Many Masters thing, I remember seeing him on Oprah. It was so funny because here he was, this big deal in the 80s, and now Oprah gets a hold of him, so look out. But before anybody like Oprah knew about him and he came out, it was very, very risky for him as a Yale professor to come out with this hypnotherapy about your past lives and how learning about your past lives can help you through certain phobias in this life, and why is this important to know. And I always kind of wondered about that past life thing and what does it really, really matter. But when I went to Therese and she told me she does past lives and she sees past lives, and you give her your name and somebody else's and then she can see the past life connections. And this was in my first meeting with her. She knew nothing about myself or my husband and our dynamic. She said, okay, so it's like 1500 something, you're a king, and you're worried about everything because there's this war and people are dying and freaking out about it. So you're trying to end the war, but you want to make sure that everything goes okay. And your husband, he's the court jester, juggling, going, you gotta laugh a little, it's all right. That's our dynamic in a lot of ways. I'm worrying about the weight of the world, and he's laughing, going, you're taking everything way too seriously, honey. It's gonna be okay. And so for her to bring that dynamic up helped me see that energetically she was matching what we were as a team and why we found each other to help each other remember what's important. But right before my one-woman show was opening, I was really freaking out because I had gotten wisdom teeth pulled, which is always fun to get major surgery as an adult. And then they wouldn't heal. I had 3 dry sockets. 1 is bad enough, but 3, come on. It was like, I had to take these painkillers just to get out of bed. I was in so much pain. And my show was opening in a week and a half. I couldn't memorize the lines because I was on so many painkillers I couldn't get out of bed. So I was like, I need a tune-up, you know. So I went to Therese and I went in and I just said, I'm really scared about the show opening up. And she goes and tells me about what she sees, and she said, oh my God, what's going on right here, you know. Oh, why? What do you see? 3 dry sockets, little issue, major surgery. No, she saw lifetime after lifetime where I would get punished and killed, sometimes my tongue pulled out, sometimes beheading, for speaking my truth. One says a Salem witch, one says, you know, speaking out against corrupt priests, Catholic priests. I'll always, you know, get hung for that. Yeah, they're going to punish you if you're out the corrupt priests. But apparently, very painful deaths over and over again for getting up and speaking my truth. So my soul was trying to prevent me from getting up on a stage and speaking about this kind of a topic because it isn't considered as mainstream, and my soul didn't want me to get beheaded again or, you know, punished again. So it was shutting down this entire 5th chakra and preventing it from being able to heal. And once I heard these lifetimes and I heard these patterns, and then I realized, oh gosh, that's so interesting. Thank you, soul, for wanting to protect me, but it's okay now. It's 2008 at the time. I think we can handle this. And I'm going to get up. I'm going to get on stage, I'm going to speak these truths, and it's going to be okay. So just hearing those past lives did help me with the healing. And within 24 hours, all 3 sockets closed up. Incredible healing, just from hearing those stories and going, oh, wait a minute, this part of this is in my mind. Okay, wait, we all can heal. And I agree with what you were saying, Glenn. We all can heal. We all can access that light, but we are wired differently. It's like playing the piano. Some people do chopsticks and some people are Mozart, but everybody can take a finger and hit a key. So tap in however it works for you. For me, I like to use the analogy when I'm driving the car. I picture taking a plug from my lower spine and plugging it in to the universe. Like literally putting it in the floor plug and then watching that energy juice in and just give you a complete boost. You know, just 2 minutes of that a day. Some people need to climb mountains and do fasts and meditate. And I'm all for that if you can do it. I get frustrated. It's exhausting. You know, I say I want to climb this mountain of enlightenment, but I don't want to have to take off my heels and put down my martini to do it. So if you could just help me out with an easier way, and we're all looking for the easy way, but some people, they really are tapped into it. And I have now, since the book's come out, people are coming up to me left and right. I'm like the medium whisperer. Everyone wants to know, okay, who's her real? If someone's asking me about a psychic, who's a good psychic, you know? A lot of people ask me that. I need to find a good psychic. Here are my thoughts on psychic. I feel because of free will, we can control our destiny at any moment. So to rely on somebody to tell you what's next for you is giving up your own power of deciding what's next for you. The difference of The Secret and your manifestation and talking as if it's going to happen and hey, if we all just make a vision board, we'll get that Maserati. It's not about stuff, as my dad told me in the dream. You can say and try to manifest all the things in the world or all the big jobs, but what is the intention behind that? If the intention is to get on Oprah with a book, then that book won't get on Oprah, because that intention is to get on Oprah. What is the, are you writing to heal? Are you writing to reach people? Are you communicating just to communicate, or do you want to just hear yourself talk? You know, what is the intention? So I have all these friends with these vision boards, and they show me, and it's got all these things, and hey, I've got a vision board too. And yeah, Oprah is holding up my book in my vision board, but that's not why I wrote my book. It was, when I handed in my book, it was, I literally thought, gosh, that ended so differently than I thought it was going to be. The journey just took itself, and it just went, and I thought, if my son reads this one day, I will be happy. That was what I was thinking when I handed in that book. But the whole process of, you know, what The Secret did, I am really bothered by the DVD of The Secret, because to me the first 10 minutes is, hey, think of stuff and you'll get stuff. And then they get to the good messages in the end about intention, and this has been going on for thousands of years, and energy and all of that. And I want people to empower themselves. And that's when I see a lot of people calling on psychics all the time. Some of the psychics I interviewed said, I have people that won't make a decision without calling me first. And I just want to say, find your own voice, get the answers, get quiet, and you'll hear them. Go on a walk, ask for an answer, and you'll get it. You know, if you literally open your mind and shut out now I can't, I tried to meditate one time for a really long time. And you start to get into your own head and you hear your own thoughts. And it gets exhausting sometimes, but sometimes if I put on the right music, I can tune out and it's okay, and I'm fine with that. But I recently met a healer by the name of Master John Douglas. I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but he's out of Australia, and he's a medical intuitive, and he can look at you and see what your ailments are and what hurts, and literally does this thing with his hand where it's like it burns off the fog and takes the heel away, which is, I'm really excited to talk to you guys, because I've had this kidney pain for about a year that and Master John looked at me and he said, you're not processing acids. You've got so much acid building up in your kidney, and it's coming from wine. Do you drink a lot of wine? It's like, maybe. How much is a lot? I said, well, you gotta stop. Well, guess what? I stopped the wine and it's back. It still hurts. It stopped for about 6 months. The pain was gone. And now I don't have wine and I have pain. It's like a double whammy. So now I like Cosmos, but I still have this pain. So I feel there's some sort of connection, and I'm going, okay, I'm gonna try to ask about this and see what comes. But Master John wants to just wave and clear it. I feel that there's a mind-body connection with all ailments and a lot of energies and worry. And you know people like this, they're always sick and they're always complaining because they're always sick, and it's like attracts like, and it just keeps happening. It's this vicious cycle. And one of the things that I learned in my journey and all of my interviews is that turn on your light and protect yourself. This is the exercise I like to use is literally picturing like a light bulb. You know how it's really bright in the middle and it emanates light. So you're just literally hit the switch and you're turning on your own light bulb, and you're just going to emanate light. Because other people's gunk, you'll pick it up. If you're just walking through, going through the motions, you will pick up other people's residue. You might pick up a spirit that's looking for a body to latch on. This was another weird thing. I interviewed this one medium who said, well, there's those spirits that are in the light, and then there's the wayward spirits that are not in the light. And they're just here to cause trouble and throw things and latch onto negativities, and they're looking for people who are addicts or just grief-stricken so they can still feel, you know. I'm like, oh man, that sucks. That's a lot of work. Don't always think about protecting yourself. Then I meet another medium who says, I don't believe in wayward spirits. Only if you believe in them do you make them exist. Because the moment you die, it's like a fog. Every negative thought that you had lifts away, and it's cleared by the light and cleaned by the light. That's this medium's theory. Again, everybody's got their theory of what works and what happens. I like that theory a lot better than thinking there's these wayward spirits everywhere looking to latch on. And so when I went to see Master John Douglas, and he's an incredible healer, healed this woman of Lyme's disease and all these other things, and then people get up and they give their testimonials like we saw in that video beforehand. It's people saying, nobody had an answer, and I met Master John and I was healed. And then he says, I do not believe there's any gain to talking to anybody on the other side, because once they're there. Don't go there, because there's all these negative demons. And he starts going on about these demons that are there to fool you and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. He just healed all these people, and now he's saying not to talk to dead people. And like, that's all I've done for the last 7 or 8 years. Now, I don't know what to believe. I'm freaking out. So, as I'm saying this to myself and he's talking, he's in front of this big picture window, and I'm starting to doubt every bit of research I've done for the last 7 or 8 years, because I saw these people who were healed by his hand being waved across. So if he can do that, and he can see demons, then they must be real, but they're real to him. They're real in his world. So, as I'm thinking this and the inner monologue of doubt is going on for me, I see 2 cardinals in the tree right behind his head. And as I mentioned, that's my cardinal is my dad. And it was like, don't believe it. You know, it was like these 2 cardinals are just sitting there. And it was so funny. I just thought, oh, that was great timing, Dad. Good one. So then I get in the car and I drive home, and I get home and there's a cardinal in the tree right by the door. I'm like, oh, hi, okay, good. And then I get in the house and I go into the back room, cardinal. I mean, it was like I was stopped by cardinals. It just wanted to make sure that I knew, you know, to not give up hope, and what worked for me was okay, and what worked for me. And so that was really important, because I feel like we give up our power when we start to believe in a certain guru and their ways. And I am all for somebody giving their knowledge and their wisdom and imparting it and sharing it, and maybe it works for you. But when you start to doubt your own strengths and beliefs because theirs are right and yours are wrong, then that's when you get messed up. And that's what a very important lesson for me, because Master John has these CDs, and I get a lot out of a lot of them. There's Spirit Repair. I think his website is spiritrepair.com. And there's one that's a spirit repair and one that's a location repair and health repair. And there's a Power for Meditation CD that after I do it, I literally feel like I could run a marathon. But other friends of mine get nothing out of that, and they like the health repair CD. Again, it works for different modalities. Everybody works differently. So I like that CD, but as I went to lunch with a few friends who are fans of Master John, they talk about how if they lose their location repair, if they travel without the location repair CD or without the health repair or the spirit repair, they feel like they get sick right away. And they need his CDs to feel whole, healthy, and happy, and complete. And I said, you know, you can do that. You don't need the CD. With your intention, if you sit there and say, please bring it in, clean me out, because they're saying if you go through an x-ray, that just fries your chakras. And that I can understand. That's not great, but guess what? Charge them back up. You can do it. You can charge them. You don't need a Master John CD to charge them back up. And that's what I want to empower to people is that we can connect to the dead. We can connect to the other side. We might not be able to hear the sentences that they're saying through somebody who's been able to do this since they were 4 or since they were 6, but we will get an intuitive knowing, or you will get a call from somebody out of nowhere who will give you an important message. I mean, the moment you open yourself up to that possibility that you can hear from them in any way, you will. And you have to be open to that possibility. It's really interesting for me now, since I've been doing this and saying, thank you for letting me open, allow, and receive whatever messages I'm supposed to get. I was one day with my son, and we went to the fire station right around the corner here, just across the street. And we walked in, and the captain started talking to us, and my son had on a little CNN cub reporter shirt that Uncle Rafer gave us. And he said, oh, okay, who gave you that CNN shirt? And I said, oh, that's from Uncle Rafer. And he said, Rafer Weigel and CNN? I said, yeah, that's my brother. You're Jennifer Weigel? I said, yes. He said, oh, I wrote you a letter when your dad passed away at CBS. I never heard back from you. It's okay. I know you were busy. I never got the letter. I said, oh, no, I just felt so bad for you when your father passed away. I felt like I was tracking with you. I just really wanted to reach out and let you know. And then he says, can you come in here? I gotta tell you something. So my son's playing with Joe and Jim, firemen, and I'm with Captain Dennis, and he says, I've been able to hear angels whisper in my ear since I was a small kid. And I said, really? He said, yeah, they tell me all the time when I'm on a fire, when I go left, and I go left, and there's a kid I need to rescue, or do this, and I listen to that little whisper in my left ear, and I've been doing it. And he says, you know what, all my buddies, a couple of them have died, and they're walking through the firehouse all the time. I say, hey, Stan, how you doing? I can't tell the other guys, they think I'm nuts. And it's like, wow, he's telling me this. He's afraid to talk about it. I think there's so many of us that are wired differently that are afraid to talk about it. Somebody talking about something that happened to you when you were 4, and now you're just talking about it. It's so lovely that we can start to have these dialogues because you're not alone. And the more you talk about it, the more you'll find you're not alone. And that's what's really opened up for me since this book has come out. I had a friend of mine from high school. I hadn't seen him in years. Was in town on business. Ran into him on Michigan Avenue. Oh, let's catch up. Fine. We go and we have lunch at Ditka's. And he starts I tell him about my book. And it's like all he needed was that little pull. Because as soon as I told him about the topic of my book, he said, I've been able to see colors in people's chakras since I was 8 years old. I'm like, really? You know, this is a pretty popular kid in my school, you know, a soccer player, big jock, seeing chakras. I said, do you understand that people train for years to try to get what you were born with? He says he makes his business deals based on the colors he sees around people. And I said, well, really? He said, my closest friends have a lavender going and sometimes a bright green or a bright yellow. And, you know, the people I won't do business with have gray, sludge, or there's brown. And you know, he's telling me very specifically, he said, it looks like a fog, kind of like pig pen, you know, from Peanuts. And you can just tell when those people come in just to go running the other direction. And I'm sitting here going, this is outstanding. How many other people are closet seers or closet energy workers, you know, just trying to get through the grind because society says this is the way it has to be. And it's just really neat to have these people open up. I want to tell you one more story, and then I want to take some questions if anybody has them. But when I was doing the last run of the one-woman show, which is opening again for a 3rd time in April, but this past run, it opened in December, right before Christmas. And it was, you know, 4 degrees out, and it was really awful time for anyone to be going to a show, and they had changed my opening dates 2 days before it opened because the space wasn't done. And there were like 6 people in the audience, you know, and it seated 100, and I was thinking, oh, I'm sitting backstage going, this is so ridiculous. Again, just like Burke's books, I'm such a loser. There's only 6 people here. Oh, what are we doing? Why am I doing? And as I was sitting backstage, it was a curtain like this because they hadn't constructed the dressing room yet. They hadn't completed the wall. It was a brand new theater, so they just put a curtain up, you know, and a chair behind the curtain. So I'm sitting in this chair behind the curtain, and I could hear the small crowd talking. And I'm sitting there feeling like, oh, God, I can't believe this. And I hear the lady say, and how did you come about going to see this show? And the woman said, well, I was listening to Jonathan Brandmeier on the radio, on the loop, and Jennifer was on talking about her book. So I went and I bought the book and I read it in a day, and it changed my life because my daughter committed suicide when she was in high school, and so I went to see one of the mediums in her book, and I've been in contact with my daughter ever since. And I'm sitting there going, you know, whether you touch one person or a million, that was my one person, right? So I go out on the show and I do the show, and after the show I come out and I say, who is the woman whose daughter committed suicide? And she raises her hand. I'm wearing the bracelet now for suicide, 1-800-273-TALK. It's a talk line for teen suicides that are bullied because this girl was cyber bullied. So now this mother, so, you know, she lives in, you know, St. Charles. And apparently there was a slew of suicides that were cyberbullied in the same friend group that committed suicide. But they wanted to keep it quiet, didn't want to talk about it in the, you know, community because it would give St. Charles a bad name or something. And the church where they went as a family didn't want to have a funeral for Hillary because she committed suicide. Because, just very, very, very loving. Very Christ-like. So she was, really angry at the church, and she was really angry at the other families for not speaking out more and getting the word out to help prevent this from happening, etc. So we become friends, and we go to dinner, and we chat, and it's just a lovely woman. And she tells me more. She's now an advocate. She is on the circuit, getting out there and talk to other parents and other teens about cyberbullying and the consequences, and it's obviously her mission. But when she went, she said she was driving to go see this medium for my book, and she said, "Okay, Hillary, look, here's how I know it's you. If you put your hand on your hip and you roll your eyes at me with a sigh," which of course all teenage girls do for about 4 years, "then I'll know it was you." So she walks into this office and sits down, and the woman says, "I am really sorry to say this, but your daughter is standing next to you with her hand on her hip, rolling her eyes, going, 'Mom.'" So she knew at that moment that she was in contact with her daughter, and they've had a dialogue steadily on what her mission is. And guess what? Her daughter said the first thing she had to do: forgive the priest at the church. Embrace the priest at the church. Don't hold a grudge against the priest at the church, Mom. It's not going to help. It's going to be okay. So she's doing all that, and she's, and then she's got to go and speak to this group and speak to that group. And we can take a tragedy and we can make it into something that can be extremely gratifying or growth-filled. And that's what I feel like I've been able to do. As much as I miss my dad, I want to be able to pick up the phone and call him. I know it was the beginning of my spiritual quest, the day he took his last breath. I think I was probably questing a little bit before then, but it kind of took a new level after that. One of the days I was doing my show, I got to the section where I talk about meeting Therese Rowley and my dad coming through to give me these messages. And as I'm doing the show, I literally felt every hair on my body kind of prickle and stand on end. It felt like my hair was going. And I got this overwhelming, like a hit in the gut. And I couldn't catch my breath. And so the line in the show was, he's standing behind you, he says, he wants you to jump and the net will follow. I couldn't get that line out. And all I could say was, he's sending an enormous amount of love right now. And that's not a line in the show. It just came out of my mouth over and over. He's sending an enormous amount of love, an enormous amount of love. And then when I caught my breath and the hair started to go down, I got out the rest of the piece. So after the show, Therese Rowley, the medium, was there at the show, and she said to me, "Well, you had a visitor tonight." Because she can see him and we can't, I said, "What?" She said, "Your dad was there tonight. Standing behind you," she said, "when you got to the part about jumping and the net will follow, he put his hand right on your shoulder." It's the exact moment when I felt the hair prickle up in the gut. So I thought that was nice. And then the other week after that, we were doing a taping. I had video cameras up. We were doing a taping for a DVD of the show. And when we get to the part where my mother-in-law comes to me through the medium in Lilydale, all the lights go out. And then they come back up. The whole theater, everything. Whoa. So then afterwards, because Therese came to like 18 of the shows, I said, "Let me guess." She's like, "Oh yeah, Kathy was there, looking the lights, like, smart ass." So, still a lot of my media friends think I've lost my marbles. I'm the lady talking to dead people, and I'm on this goofy quest, and maybe I'll grow out of it and go back and anchor the 5 o'clock news. And I don't want to grow out of it. I'm growing into it, and I'm liking it the way it is. And I'm thrilled to be on this mission of getting the word out about opening your mind to the possibility that we don't have all the answers, and that we'll continue to get them in whatever form they come. So the fact that you're here, I don't think is an accident. I believe that you are where you're supposed to be in every moment, even if it's in rush hour traffic on the canopy and you're like, why? Because that happened to me once. I was pissed, and this guy stopped, and this is in my book. I'm in an intersection. He stopped at a green light. This is Chicago, people. That is so not acceptable. So I got up to drive around, and I was going to flip him off and honk, because you want to do both. So I like put the window down, and I was going to... And he looked at me with this panicked look on his face. Help, I need to get to Children's Memorial Hospital, and I'm lost. And it was like, oh my God. And I got out and I helped him and I told him, you're totally going the wrong way, you need to go there. Everyone's honking and flipping out, hey, how you doing? And I got him where he needed to go and I got back in my car. And I was supposed to be there because I was going to help him. The other people were not. So God put me there, the universe put me there, my dad, whoever put me there so that I could help. So you were here to hear this for some reason, if it's to tell somebody else, or to get the book, or to just get my email address. By the way, Jen@staytunedwithjen.com. I'm staytunedwithjen.com, and I love to hear from people. I love to hear your stories. Sometimes I put them in my books. So please share and stay in contact, and if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. So thank you very much. So feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone over if anybody has questions. Anybody have questions? Oh, now you're going to be shy? You guys are out there. So you want to ask questions? Yes.
I want to know if you kept that part in your play when the lights go out.
Ah!
Great dramatic.
You know what? I didn't, but I might make the April 18th reopen of the show. I am going to incorporate some new material. So, yeah, no, it's true. It was one of those, oh, that was not an accident. And that's the other thing too, James Van Praagh saying that you can get these signals all the time, whether it's lights flickering or a picture moving. You know, little winks here and there, a feather is dropped, pennies are dropped, you find them. My grandmother's favorite song was Pennies from Heaven. So I went and did this talk in Woodstock, Illinois, and I was thinking about my grandmother the whole time driving out there for some reason. And after the talk, a woman raised her hand and said, have you ever heard of the saying, pennies from heaven? It was the first thing she said, and I thought, yes, I have. And now I know my grandmother's here saying hello. It's her little message, little wink. That talk in Woodstock, by the way, was a last-minute thing. A friend called me, and I had gotten a second printing of my book. I was very excited because in the first printing I forgot to thank people in the acknowledgments because I didn't get it in time. I was horrified. So I got the acknowledgments in for the second printing, so I called my publisher and I said, can you please send me like a box of books so I can give them out to people I acknowledge and thank? So they sent me a box of books and I get it and I open it up and it's the wrong printing. Oh, crap. So I got on the phone, can you please send me a box? Okay, we'll send another one right out. They sent a second box. Wrong printing. So I have 70 books by my front door. And I'm like, what am I going to do with 70 books? Next day I get a call. Jen, can you come to a talk at Woodstock for 300 women? And can you bring about, I don't know, 80 books? Sure. I just happen to have a boatload of them. So it works in strange ways. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned about your son and going to the fire station. Just suggestions you would have for us parents, grandparents, and teachers, anyone working with children, to open the dialogue.
Thank you. Children are our gateway, and they are so intuitive. You know, we have so much more as young children, and then we grow up and we lose it. And so I always try to tell parents, you listen to your kids when they tell you about their instincts on things. I don't like him, Mommy. I don't want to go there, Mommy. Anything like that when you've got a babysitter. No, you know, my little sister, I remember she had this one babysitter, she just kept screaming, no, Maya, no, Maya. It's like, okay, something's going on there. They pick up on energies. They don't have the filters that we do to shut them down. As a kid, I was always torn with stomach aches. I could sense when a fight was coming between my parents, or, you know, you could just get a vibe on somebody with ill intentions. So yes, all I can say is empower the parents to tell them there's so much research and that it's so exhausting they wouldn't even want to begin to try to get into it. But there's so much research out there that shows that children have these intuitions that prove to be valid, that we need to listen to them more and empower them. I have a friend who talks to his 3-year-old and says, do you remember what you were before you were Alex? And he tells stories. One time I was playing in a concert, and this, remember Danny when I used to play the piano when you were my son then? I mean, these stories, they're really cool. So open the possibility, if anybody has any kids or nieces and nephews that age range, open that dialogue. Remember who you were before you were Julie? And just see what comes out of their mouth, because I bet you they tell you. Does that help at all?
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I just pressed the button and something flashed up on the screen. Technically, no. Yes?
When your show opens on April 18th, how long will it go, and two, where is this?
Yes, it opens April 18th at the Chicago Center for the Performing Arts, which is at Chicago and Halstead down in the city, across from Kendall College. And it will run for 6 weeks until May 24th, every Saturday night at 8 and every Sunday at 3 p.m. And all the details are on the front page of my website, staytunedwithjen.com. So I hope you guys can come, and please say hello if you do. Yes?
Will you be wearing fishnet stockings in your show?
Why would you want to know if I'm wearing fishnet stockings in my show?
Oh, no. I'm curious.
Yes, no, I think that I will just be in pants this time. It's not the cabaret version. Maybe for the other extension, we'll see. We'll get the late night show slot and see what we can do. Bring in more show tunes. Yes.
I'm talking about, you said something about the kidneys earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if you were familiar, in Chinese medicine, they said when kidneys are affected, it has to do with fear.
Oh, yeah. I'm terrified all the time.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, because I went to an acupuncturist, and it's like every healer I can find, and it's a lot of fear related about the economy and work and everything that's going on, and just trying to let go of it, knowing I can't control it. But thank you for that. See that to me as a little wink of, that fear you keep holding on to because you're throbbing in pain. Thank you for the reminder. It's good. I gotta let that go. Anybody else? You guys are just thinking about the chocolate cake out there, aren't you?
I worked at the Lakeside 38 years ago. There was 5 patients that were a case of kidney surgery, 5 of them, okay? The sister-in-law and the brother of my husband, when he was having his kidney surgery, they were saying, how much longer is surgery going to be? And I turned around, I told them, I said, don't worry, because in the operating room, God is guiding their hands, the doctors, okay? These 5 cases, I said, in the meantime, you can keep on feeling the way you feel, but I am going to pray, okay? I said some prayers. God is healing every one of those 5 cases of kidney operations. When I got through saying my prayers, there was a patient that was coming up one by one, going to the recovery room. Then the last one was my husband that came out. Here comes the doctor into the waiting area. He looks at the sister-in-law and the brother, and he was like wondering, how did somebody know? Okay? They looked at the brother and sister-in-law, but then he turned and he looked at me, straight at me, took a hold of my hand, squeezed my hand hard and tight, saying, how did I know? God told me somehow. And God took the doctors and nurses of those 5 cases and used them to fix the kidneys.
Well, thank you for that reminder too. And I'm going to give it up to God and get the messages, and maybe you'll get a ping on something. Maybe somebody here will, but yes, honey.
Do you have the threading right now?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to let it go?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, this is why we come to these things. It's a full service event. You get up to the podium with pain, and somebody helps you release it. I was talking with a healer yesterday, and she said, it's not a kidney, it's adrenal. And I said, okay, it still hurts. Let's fix it.
They both release fear.
Both fear. Adrenals too. Huh? Damn. Okay, well, we'll have to let that go.
Does it feel the same now? Or is it letting go?
It's hot.
I know it's
You're
really
good, girl.
Yeah, it's coming out.
It's warm and fuzzy. Ooh, excuse me. Yes, I'm sorry, in the way back.
Can you repeat your email address
address and your website?
Yes, it's Jen, Jen, at staytunedwithjen.com, and the website is staytunedwithjen.com. Yes?
I was wondering, you talked a lot about, I know it takes a lot of time and money to go see a lot of different psychics and to do this kind of exploration that you did. And, I mean, I would imagine there were times when you felt very doubtful
Oh, yeah.
and felt like giving up.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit, if you didn't give up or give up when you thought you should give up, what made you not give up? And if you felt like you needed to give up, what made you feel like you needed to give up?
Well, when I would be in those moments of on the floor crying and screaming and hitting pillows, because there were a lot of them, a sign would always show up to make me just reinstill the faith. Example, in Lilydale, I was really feeling lost because I just wanted to talk to my dad, and I don't know what I wanted to hear him say, but it was just exhausting. And I went to dinner, and one of the things James Van Praagh says is if they were sending a signal, you might hear their name out of nowhere. That might be a sign. Thank you, it's feeling much better, by the way. I go to dinner in Lilydale, New York, and I hear this kid's kicking my chair, which was supposed to happen because I was supposed to hear. It drew my attention to the table. And I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself, ordered some wine, and the lady said, "Is that common in the Weigel family?" And I was like, "Excuse me, did you just say the name Weigel?" She says, "Yeah, we're the Weigels from Detroit." W-E-I-G, yeah. I said, "Well, I'm from Chicago, and Weigel's not that common of a name. I just thought it was interesting." And the guy at the table goes, "Oh my gosh, you're from Chicago? I'm from Winnetka. My name's so-and-so Weigel. People used to always ask me if I was related to that Tim Weigel, the sportscaster." My dad. So here I am in this town, population 312, sitting next to 9 Weigels. One of them brings up Tim Weigel. It was like, okay, every time I would get to that sulky place, within time, something like that would show up and it would reinstill my faith. So I guess I kept asking for it, though. I think that you can get into that place, and like they talk about like attracts like, and being negative and being in the negative energy and being in that place of the swirling the drain, as I like to call it. But if you picture bringing in the light, this is my tool. I feel like you can bring in the light for everything, for depression, for weight loss, for dealing with a fight with relative to parenting. I literally call in the light, and I picture, it's like I talked about the light bulb turning on and emanating, or this is the other one I use, it's like picturing the sun as it burns off the fog. Because when the sun rises, the fog can't stay, it literally burns it off. So I just call in the light. Therese Rowley says, "Come Holy Spirit." She's raised very Catholic, and that's a little too churchy for me. But I give everybody the power to say whatever works for them. Some say, "Come Jesus Christ," or something, in the name of the Father. So, for me, it's just, I picture light. I literally picture beaming white light, like a heat lamp coming into the room, and I say, "Bring in the light." It's like inviting people to a party. And I think we can all access this at any time. We're all invited to the party. So when are you going to respond to the invitation? It sits on your dining room table, and you sit there and you look at it, and it's there, and you're kind of like, I'll get to it. Respond to it, just try, just go, give it a shot. And you can always leave the party. Those people, they show up, they make an appearance, they do a lap, and they leave. So you don't have to stay, you don't have to feel obligated to stay at the party, but just try it out and see if you like it. And some days it'll stick and some days it won't. But that's the only thing, those two things, asking for signs and bringing in light, seem to get me out of that dark space. But sometimes you have to feel it too, that's the other thing. Everybody just wants the pain to go away because it hurts. And I get that. And I had a lot of pain growing up, a lot of pain in my childhood. But feel it, respect it, thank it for the gift, thank it for the lesson, and then move through it. Versus just jumping out of the way like it's a bullet coming at you, like it's a hot potato. That's what we all want to do. It's like, let's just take our Paxil, it's hot potato, Not that's bad, but you know what I'm saying. It's okay to embrace it. See, Diane's stalking me. This is the you gotta get off the podium lady. She's like, come find me. StayTunedWithJen.com. Jen at StayTunedWithJen.com. And thank you so much, everybody.